Hello, everyone. Today it is my privilege to introduce you to Charles P. Rettig, or to interview Charles P. Rettig, the 49th Commissioner of the Internal Revenue. We all make our livings working with the Internal Revenue Service, but many of you don't know. Chuck, Mr. Rettig, oversees staff of 80,000 employees, a budget of 11 billion people, and with that brings in more than $3.5 trillion for the nation. Before being the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, Chuck had every position that you could have on the outside. He was with the ABA. He was the president of the American College of Tax Counsel. He was a partner at a very well-known law firm in California. He was on and was a member of the IRS Advisory Council. So he's done every part of what you can do in tax controversy, essentially living his whole life to get to this point. And now we're lucky, he is our commissioner. Commissioner, it's been 2 years. Tell me about your proudest moments as being the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue.
Well, certainly it's a privilege to come on board as Commissioner. I think most of you are probably aware I'm the first tax person to sit in this seat since Peggy Richardson in 1997. So I came on board really having sat in the seat that each of you are sitting in now, having done what each of you are doing now for the last 36 years. Came on board 2 years ago. And came on board knowing literally thousands and thousands of IRS employees, and similarly thousands of practitioners, thousands and thousands of preparers, of taxpayers, et cetera, and came on board with the idea that we would do this journey together. That's together as in everybody inside the Internal Revenue Service, together with everybody outside the Internal Revenue Service who interacts with the IRS. And so, one of my first proudest moment happens every single day when I wake up and realize I have the privilege to come in and work with each of you and work with each of the employees at the Internal Revenue Service and really try to make things better and better for everyone. We want as seamless interactions as we can have with folks on the outside. We want our employees really want to do better. We need to provide more resources and tools and training and experience and the rest. And staffing for our employees to give them the opportunity to reach their capabilities. And so the proud moments get spread around really on a daily basis. I think many of you are aware that not long after I came on board, Mike Desmond came on board as chief counsel, a truly spectacular individual. I'm safe to say that I don't think there has ever been a better chief counsel. Mike is also a 7-day-a-week person, and he gets it, and he has the same passion and drive that I do to make it better. His is more from the counsel perspective, but clearly Mike and I have been a team for 2 years, together with many other people who came in from the outside. One of the last, a couple of last points that I'll make in terms of this, I could go on forever, but that's not what this is for. But a couple of the other points was very privileged to represent the United States of America with respect to every other tax administrator, over 50 different tax administrators from other countries, and interact with them on behalf of the entire country. I don't want to say not just on behalf of the Internal Revenue Service or just on behalf of this or that, but when you step into that arena representing the United States of America with the intent, the desire, the passion to make it better for our people, as well as making it better for people in other countries, many of whom really don't know or maybe even care that we exist. Most of us in life don't get that opportunity. And so from that perspective, I couldn't be more proud to step up and represent our country vis-a-vis other countries. When I look at enforcement efforts, what we've been able to do over the course of the past 2 years, and we're by no means where we want to be, but what we have been able to do over the course of the last few years, sort of a cross-functional coordinated efforts. I think that's one of the strengths that we've had. speaking of strengths, I've said it when I got on board. I probably said it before I got on board, but I'll continue to say it. The absolute strength of the Internal Revenue Service is the agency itself, the employees, as well as the relationships that we have with folks on the outside. So I have 2 more years left on my term till November 12th, 2022. Our hope is to be able to get the agency in a position where it's sort of, I like to say, it's on rails moving forward in a very good direction with respect to our employees, with respect to practitioners, preparers, taxpayers, and others. The last piece I'll say, Frank, in terms of very proud moments. On the outside, a lot of people talk to the Internal Revenue Service as sort of a tax administration agency, and I know some prior commissioners said it's more like a big data processing agency, and some say it's a financial services agency, and absolutely we're all that. But in terms of proud moments, this past year dealing with COVID, I could not be more proud of the role of the Internal Revenue Service with respect to the entire country, trying to roll out economic impact payments, guidance, and a whole bunch of other things at the same time while we were doing filing season. But even beyond that, there's some things that you learn when you're on the inside that are not so evident when you're on the outside. So while we were doing all of this, and to the extent, it was visible to people, what was not visible was the fact that each of our employees had the same concerns with respect to COVID about themselves and their families and their neighbors and their communities, and nevertheless carried on with the responsibilities that we have to every other American, I'll say. In addition, we had hurricanes and we had wildfires, and every time there's hurricanes and wildfires, we deploy up to 3,000 IRS phone assisters, CSRs, to really, we flip a switch and they become phone assisters for FEMA. So notwithstanding the fact that we were essentially initially shutting down a lot of our facilities, even when we were ramping back up, as many as 3,000 out of 15,000 phone assisters were handling calls for FEMA with respect to the hurricanes or the wildfires on the West Coast. And, I was an economics major at UCLA, and it comes down to guns and butter decisions, and the right decision there was to put our people on the line to do intake for FEMA, notwithstanding the fact, and we'll say to each of you, we realize how difficult it was for, the people we normally interact with who need transcripts, information, phone service, but I made the judgment call, and to me it was a relatively straightforward judgment call, that we do those activities and we help FEMA where we can, and we're very proud to be able to do that. The last piece, Frank, I'll mention in terms of a pride factor, within the last year, 3 very significant matters on behalf of the United States of America that many people probably are not aware that the IRS is involved in. And a year ago, Department of Justice announced the takedown of the largest child exploitation site in history, the arrest of 337 individuals in 38 countries, rescued 23 actively exploited children. The lead investigative agency for that was IRS Criminal Investigation, our cyber crimes unit. They operate in the dark net, virtual currencies and whatnot. And then more recently, about 3-4 weeks ago, takedown of 3 terrorism financing sites, one for Hamas, one for Al-Qaeda, and one for ISIS. The lead investigative agency identified it, investigated it, and actually led to the seizure of their sites. There's more to it, but you can read the papers. IRS Criminal Investigation Cyber Crimes Unit. And then I think I hope most of you may have seen last week the seizure of over $1 billion in cryptocurrency associated with some darknet activities that IRS was the lead agency in years ago on Silk Road. And the IRS operating out there in the environment seized a little over $1 billion in cryptocurrency associated with the previous activities. So we are much more than a tax administration agency. We really work to make it better for people. Everybody here certainly respects taxpayer rights, but we're trying to do more with respect to taxpayer services, operating through the eyes of each of you and your clients. And I'll toss it back to Frank, but we're on this journey together. And being here and being interviewed by Frank is a humbling experience. I'm not aware of a practitioner who has done more for, I'll say, tax administration and certainly the underserved communities than Frank has done. But we can all be there, and sometimes it's baby steps, and sometimes it's large leaps forward. But if we help one person or we help 1,000 people, we have helped one or helped 1,000. And certainly in this role, it's been a privilege to be on teams with Frank, with you, and with others to be able to accomplish a lot of these efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, look, child porn, terrorism, drugs. Right? Your enforcement guys are the best. But it's scary out there, right? You're going out, you're taking down the bad guys. Does anything keep you up at night?
Thank you, Frank, for the question of what keeps a commissioner up at night. Certainly, probably the number one response most commissioners would give would be cybersecurity, cyber threats, protecting not only the Internal Revenue Service, but protecting our country and protecting the information that we exchange with other countries regarding U.S. taxpayers doing business around the world. So we work very hard to defend cyber attacks, and I think that many of you might be aware, in fiscal 19, we had about 1.6 billion cyber attacks on our system. We average more than 2.5 million sophisticated cyber attacks per day. The vast majority of these coming from nation states and certainly located throughout the world, as you can imagine. And to put it into perspective, if a nation state or somebody was to actually do a significant hack on the data that the Internal Revenue Service is responsible to protect, I think it would be an emotional situation for not only folks who might interact with the Internal Revenue Service, but the country. People want to believe that we have this, that we're protecting their data as we should be, to the levels that we should be. And it creates sort of a trust and respect for the IRS and for the U.S. government that we are able to protect against such an overwhelming number of really sophisticated attacks. So level one of what might keep a commissioner, or what keeps me awake at night, is the cyber defense systems that we have. What allows me to sleep is knowing that our cyber people do not sleep. They are passionate about what they do. They understand the nature of the protection that they need to provide, and they rise to any challenge that comes through. And certainly during the COVID situation, some might have thought we were vulnerable, and we were not. And so if you look at the IRS and you say, COVID hasn't gone away, but the aspect that people thought we might be open for attack or subjected to an attack, the attacks increased, but there were no successful attacks. So very proud about that. Another point that keeps me awake at night, and I think most of you probably could guess where I'm going here, which is that we're in 2020, and the underserved communities in this country have truly been underserved. That it's one thing to mention efforts to serve underserved communities. It's another to actually take it to heart, have the passion, and realize that we can use the operational status that we have as the Internal Revenue Service, 80,000 employees located throughout the world, and bring about change to real people who are having significant difficulties, whether that's the lower income folks, or the folks who are not comfortable in the English language, or the folks who simply don't speak English but are very proud to be in this country, as well as sight impaired, hearing impaired, people who don't have broadband, people don't have a cell phone, they don't have a laptop. We can actually reach out, touch them, and make a difference. And the Internal Revenue Service touches more Americans than any organization on the planet. We do it many times per year. We do it more than any public or private institutions, or anybody else out there, and we're proud about it. And so we can actually reach out and make a difference for real people in a meaningful manner. And that's a different way of staying awake at night. It's, waking up at 3 a.m. thinking, so why are we in 2020 and we don't at least have our Form 1040 in Spanish? We do now, right? So if you think, can people make a difference? Can interactions with practitioners make a difference? The 2020 Form 1040 will be in Spanish. When we launched our non-filers portal for economic impact payments, we did it in English, and we almost instantly also launched it in Spanish. Same with Get My Payment, English, Spanish. And we could go through a whole series of things where the sitting in 2020, I think you could be quite proud. And I'm convinced that sitting in 2022, you will be quite proud, because what you're seeing is the opening round of the IRS operating through the eyes of the taxpayer, whether it's through Taxpayer First Act or whether it's directly in the streets, to make a difference to the people in this country and the people outside of this country that we interact with, and to do it in a meaningful manner. And Frank, being here with you, the last thing that really keeps me up at night is some advice you gave me when I went into my confirmation hearing, Senate Finance Committee confirmation hearing. And Frank says, no matter what, he says, just to remember one thing. A lot of people are uncertain whether chocolate cannolis are real cannolis. I've been struggling with that for 2 years as Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service. And, truly, my best friend says, do you know whether chocolate cannolis are considered real cannolis? And so I've been awaiting the opportunity to actually, whether it's testimony in the House or testimony at the Senate, to inquire of, members of Congress and senators whether they know, because we do need help. These are the kinds of issues that are in the trenches that can make a difference. Is, when we reference cannolis, should we also be talking about chocolate cannolis? And thanks, Frank, you've kept me awake for 2 years. I know that someday you're going to help me really understand the result there. So, I look forward to that interaction with you over the course of the next 2 years.
Commissioner, you are the original face. Now, you talked about, and
I love you, Frank. You know that.
No, and I think the impact that your people have made with the EIP payment, right? We should tell the audience, right? I mean,
Yep.
For the first time, we saw IRS communication liaison. The Internal Revenue Service did outreach to homeless shelters to make sure that homeless Americans who were entitled to an EIP got it. Battered person shelters. The first time in New York and New Jersey, you were out, and your people were out to every religious group, priests, pastors, rabbis, imams. They were all asked to make sure that the poorest of their communities understood that they were still entitled. The outreach to every consulate and the translations to all of their languages. You have changed the agency, and having seen it, I see how much this $1,200 or more made to people's lives. My question: how do you get it done so fast? You got a lot of money out. The stats. How did you move all of that money to all of those people so quickly?
Our people are spectacular. We have distributed more than 163 million payments, totaling more than $273 billion. In June, TIGTA did a report of the first 157 million payments and said their report indicated that we were 98% accurate as to the amount of the first 157 million payments that we put out. Operating in a COVID environment, really, we shut down. I am the person who shut down 511 facilities, called back our attaches from foreign countries. We had to sort of obviously regroup, figure out where we were, and then lean back into the wind that was coming in our direction in terms of COVID, in terms of filing season, and in terms of getting these payments out. And a $1,200 payment is a lot of money to anyone. To the sort of homeless, and particularly the unsheltered homeless, it is an absolute life changer. And so trying to figure out how to identify people such that we could issue the payments that we want to issue was really been one of the biggest undertakings. And yes, there are people in this country who have not yet received their payments. We're down into our non-filer portal will be open until November 21. Everybody can use that to get us the information. People can assist really, the homeless people, the unsheltered homeless people. There's a tremendous amount of folks in this country who just don't interact with the government for whatever reason. This is the opportunity for all of us as professionals, but really people who care, to find those people and make a difference. The IRS wants to make that difference. The IRS has the authority to make that difference. but we can't make a difference for people that we're unable to identify. So importantly, we need your help to help us help others. We're very proud of the payments that we're able to make, but we're equally concerned about the payments that we want to make, that we want to get out there. So the non-filers portal is open till November 21. We have authority to issue payments through December 31, and we want to do it. We want to make sure that every effort is undertaken to issue payments to everybody, every eligible American who's entitled to a payment. And importantly, I know a lot of things get picked up after we make comments. 163 million payments is not 163 million people. Those payments were under the CARES Act, were done according to filing status, to the extent we had filing status. So a household, husband, wife, and maybe children, is more than one person. And, don't lose track of that. But also, the last thing in terms of sort of partnerships, and Frank, you and many others with you and around you were instrumental in this. The EIP outreach materials were put out in 35 different languages. This is an agency that operated in 6 languages when I got on board just a bit more than 2 years ago. And partnering with people on the outside to do EIP materials in 35 languages should never be lost among people here. I think many of you are aware when I talk in terms of sort of underserved communities that my in-laws live in an underserved community, and my in-laws do not speak English. They, immigrated to this country, but they are very, very proud each year for the privilege of filing a tax return to demonstrate to everybody else that they are as important. Similarly, folks who are entitled to the EIPs need to know that we know they are important. So it's a mechanism to really help people's self-confidence and knowledge that there are people here who care, who have reached out to identify them. And, Frank, you say it exactly how I feel it. It has been, I think, miraculous. People tend to want to focus because of, I guess, the environment that we're in, on the people we've been unable to identify or get payments to. I would challenge any federal agency in any country to be able to do what the employees of the Internal Revenue Service have been able to do this year on behalf of, almost 200 million Americans when you factor out the payments, at a time when you put it in your mindset of what was going on in their mindsets, the people who received these payments in March, April, May. And I get, somewhat concerned about the folks who tend to try to indicate, well, the IRS hasn't been whatever, hasn't really put forth enough effort. Let me tell you, we put together an EIP toolkit that we sent to 535 offices up on the Hill with the request that they send it out to their local offices, and a little dismayed to find that a lot of the links on congressional sites did not link to our EIP site, and so we continually reach out to the Hill. It's not just an IRS problem. It's not just a Hill problem. It's not just a practitioner problem. It should be something everyone wants to step into, lean into this effort and help us get the balance of these payments out. So rather than saying maybe that people who worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from March through July might not have done enough, our people read what people on the outside write. They read the newspapers. Those things circulate among our people. And I think it's highly disrespectful for people on the outside to imply that the employees of the Internal Revenue Service ever pulled up short, or more importantly, that the tens of thousands of people and more than 5,000 organizations on the outside who leaned into this to help us, I think it's disrespectful to them to possibly imply they could have done more or they should have done more. We want to do more. They want to do more. The employees want to do more. But I would encourage people to at least help focus on the positives of what has transpired during this period of time and recognize this transpired by people, our employees, who live in the communities, who are reflective of the communities, who serve the communities where these payments were distributed, and who are very sensitive to these underserved communities now that we're reaching into. So, I would ask people to reflect on comments that they make about whether it's the agency or it's, myself or others, and really understand that this has been an amazing experience for this country and that we're not done. So, Frank, thank you for the passion that you exhibited in terms of, the comments that you made, and I'm completely on board. With that, I would like to thank you and thank Eric for providing me the opportunity to participate today, and I look forward to sometime in the future where we can do so in person. You're each very important. You're important to tax administration. You're important to me. And again, I didn't come on this journey by myself. I came on this journey to work with you to make it better for everyone. So thank you very much. And Frank, it goes without saying, everybody here knows you're special. And I mean that, from the bottom of my heart. I'm not going to embarrass Frank and go through the things that he's done for so many people, but most of you are aware. And, he's a role model for me, and he should be a role model for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I mean, we don't say it enough, but we appreciate the sacrifice that you, your team, the IRS employees are making for the American public every day. I know we don't say it enough, but we're also here to help. Don't ever reach out to us. We want to help you with the mission. Encourage America's taxpayers, educate America's taxpayers. We're here for you, and we really do appreciate the sacrifice that you, your team, and everyone at the IRS is making for the American people. Thank you, and thank you, Northeast IRS Conference.
For sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.